Hey everyone, it's Alex Ball with my final episode of the No-Till Market Garden Podcast. It's been so much fun talking to farmers from all across the country about soil-first farming, building their food businesses, and how they operate their no-till farms. It's been a journey unlike any other I've been on, and I'm so thankful for what we've been able to accomplish as a podcast network over the last 3 years. On today's episode, I sit down for conversations with two of my favorite farmer friends/mentors, Adam Mitchell and Lindsay Steele, who have both helped me over the last few years develop my individual business, become a better farmer, and grow my understanding of what it means to feed my community. We dig deep on soil building through deeper wood chip application, scaling up and fine-tuning a greens business, and aggregating fresh produce from and for other farmers in your local community. So without any further ado, let's get to the interview with Adam Mitchell of Country Valley Farm. Then after that, a conversation with Lindsay Steele of Garden Fort.
Today's episode of the No-Till Market Garden Podcast is brought to you by Farmhand. I don't know about you, but I got into farming to grow food, not spend my time creating pack lists, writing newsletters, responding to emails, or maintaining web stores. If I could spend less time on my phone and computer and more time farming, that would be a win. Enter Farmhand. Farmhand is the only all-in-one virtual assistant built by and for CSA farmers. It takes care of the admin, managing orders, customer communications, and automating tedious tasks so you can get back to doing what you love. On average, Farmhand saves CSA farmers 6 hours a week. That's 6 hours you could spend with your family, out in the field, or simply taking a breather. So, what would you do with an extra 6 hours? Now's the time to get your systems ready for next season. Learn how Farmhand can help at farmhand.partners/no-till. Today's episode is also brought to you by ASAP, Appalachian Sustainable Agriculture Project. ASAP, Appalachian Sustainable Agriculture Project, will offer the Business of Farming Conference on Saturday, February 22nd in Asheville, North Carolina. This annual conference brings together professional and aspiring farmers from across the Southeast to network and share resources to build viable farm businesses. Scholarships for BIPOC and limited resource farmers are available, as well as discounts for farm partners registering together. Registration opens in mid-November. Find out more at asapconnections.org. That's asapconnections.org. All right, enjoy the show.
Adam Mitchell from Country Valley Farm. I'm so thankful to have you back on the show. You're one of our very first guests almost 3 years ago. And as someone who I consider as a mentor and a personal friend and someone who is a real expert on feeding the soil, I really appreciate you coming back on and talk to us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm honored to be here. Thanks for having me, Alex.
Oh, anytime. For folks who don't know about you, where are you located? And what kind of base things do you grow? What's your business model over there at Country Valley Farm?
Yeah, so we're a certified organic farm. We're on 1.8 acres. We're on the northeast edge of Ann Arbor. So we're about 10 minutes, 12 minutes of downtown Ann Arbor and about 30 minutes of downtown Detroit. Our farm, the foundation of our farm is garlic. And everything else we grow is to support crop rotations and things that we like to grow. We have a CSA. We do farmers market once a week. We do Saturdays at Eastern Market in Detroit. Our CSA runs 30 weeks of the year. We deliver. We only do home delivery, and that's on Sundays. We have some restaurant business and some high-end specialty food stores that we work with also. And we collaborate with other farms. So not only do we aggregate for other farms by purchasing their product, but we also have other farms that then purchase product from us. Stuff we grow, and in many cases, stuff that other farmers grow too that we've aggregated.
Wow. So it's very well-rounded, a lot of different irons in the fire to feed this business.
Yeah, and we love it. I mean, and even I forgot that we started working with Market Wagon last year, which is like an online fulfillment service that helps us connect with consumers. And basically, I'm pretty excited about the food that we have. And our mission is to increase access to locally produced organic food. And so I get pretty excited about it. And so I'm thankful to sell it to anyone and also to buy from select producers that can help fill what we need.
Yeah, and Adam, I think in our farm community, you offer a service that a lot of growers really need, and especially, like you said, that sourcing and then redistribution to smaller growers. I know a lot of folks who are new into the farm community, they might need access to organic apples or potatoes or carrots, and they might not know where to go to start to get those products. But I've seen you in our community work really hard to like make those things accessible to folks to really help empower those local businesses.
Thank you. Yeah, it's what I know, it's what I do, and so that's my way of sharing. And one thing to keep in mind also is, yeah, you can make money off of it, but it's not focused on the money. Obviously, if we weren't making some money, we wouldn't be able to sustain, and then we wouldn't be able to keep doing it. But it's really important to treat people the way you'd want to be treated, and that's as a seller or a buyer or as a consumer. And so we just try to like every day keep that front of mind and integrity. My grandfather a long time ago said, "What you have in this world is your name and your word." And so I feel pretty proud of people being able to say, "Hey, we work with Adam, we work with Country Valley Farm, and we like what we get, and we like what's going on."
So you're doing all this production, mainly garlic, and then all this aggregation to feed the CSA and fill out your crop selection. How did you make these connections with these growers, and how do you find new folks to work with? Like, how do you manage all that?
Yeah, and you know what? I easily digress. So let me before I get into that. So we do grow a lot of garlic. We grow a lot of garlic. We use about half of our space for garlic because we rotate it. And then we also we like to do bunching greens, kales, collards, dandelions, chards, callaloo, things like that. We grow okra. We grow some tomatoes, some peppers, mostly sweets, some hots, tomatillos, onions, potatoes. We got into strawberries last year, did real good. We planted raspberries a long time ago, but I wasn't taking care of them right. And then I think I kind of got a handle on it now, and we did fairly well with raspberries last year. We do a lot of culinary herbs. That's another thing that we're big on is culinary herbs and some medicinal herbs also.
So how did you find those producers to work with? I think a lot of our listeners are either new farmers or are either growers who haven't yet ventured into the world of aggregating from other farmers, selling and buying from other growers. So how did you get involved with that?
Yeah, well, my background is in organic and natural foods. And so from background, I did happen to know a lot of these other farmers. And then in some cases I didn't. Like, for example, I met you through Instagram and word of mouth. And so then I was able to kind of see what you were doing. And then I think I just reached out to you on Instagram the first time. And the next thing you know, here we are years later. I have found great farmers on Instagram. Also in the winter, I'll do searches. So I'll just be on the internet and I'm checking different resources. So some organic certifiers will actually publish a list of who their certified members are and what they produce. So I'll find those. Just random. A lot of times I'll do random searches. I remember, and then just kind of putting it in the universe, like our blueberry folks that we work with, that we're so proud of these organic Michigan grown blueberries. You found those people, Alex, and you found them because we had found other organic Michigan blueberry growers through the internet and didn't really vet them. And the fruit wasn't exactly what we wanted. And it was a little bit of a bummer. And I remember that evening, you and I were there kind of lamenting of how it didn't go so well. And then you went to the co-op in Ypsi to pick up some stuff at the food co-op, and you took a picture of a blueberry label. And then we reached out and we connected with those people, and now we're working with them. So there's a lot of that. It's also a matter, I mean, some of them is going to farmers markets and saying to other farmers, hey, you grow and sell organic dried beans. I don't. I have a CSA and I got other farms I work with. Can I buy some? And not being pushy and giving people space. One thing I can say is every farmer has their way they'd like their business to be run. We work really hard. And if someone wants to come and try to turn things upside down, we don't want to even have that conversation. And so approaching people with respect and humbleness, and then being communicative, and then also like being mindful. So if I told someone I was going to buy something from them, I'm definitely buying it from them exactly the way I said. And I'm not backing out, even if my plans changed. If I'm in a relationship of working with someone for years, it's different. Then they know they're in the day to day. We're all trying to do the same thing. They wouldn't want me to take something I didn't have or a home for or something like that. But like just kind of that respect thing, I think goes a long way. And then the price. I don't ever want to ask someone to give me a lower price. But if they say they need help with something, then, and I say, what's the price? And they tell me, I will say I can do something or I can't. And it's nice to have like a real conversation. Well, at that price, I could buy this much. But if you happen to want to sell 10 times more than that, if we hit this price, I'm going to charge this much. To be completely transparent, I tell them, or I'll tell them I'm going to be in a range. So some people are going to be at this price. Some people are going to be in the middle. This is my high end. This is the price I can pay, and I'll buy X amount. And people really seem to like that.
Yeah, it seems like so much of this whole industry, it's so much of the price, what things cost, is so hidden and so hard to know what to charge, what's too much. And it seems like just having those honest conversations, which can be very uncomfortable for a lot of folks. I understand, like money is touchy, and to go there, it seems like just having those honest conversations and trying to bring people in on what's happening in your business to really figure out how you can support them and get their products to the end consumer.
Yeah. And it's, and it's a little foreign because people are on guard. And so you're really creating a space. I mean, that's what we're doing anyways, right? As small farmers that care about our community, what we're trying to do is create paradigm shifts. We're trying to honor tradition. We're trying to do what we think is right. We know that it's not utopia, but we also know that we can create these wonderful scenarios and situations. And to me, that's kind of some of what I like, the good vibes I get from the whole thing, that it's very addictive because it's we're manifesting it, we're calling it down, and it does happen. And some people like that. Some people, maybe because of their life experiences, that might be a bit much for somebody, and they just don't want to work in that realm, and that's okay. We're so fortunate here in southeastern Michigan, and I mean, actually, even the west coast of Michigan, like along the lake and going up towards Grand Rapids, so many great farms, and there's old and new, and just so much food, and so exciting. Of course, here we are now getting ready for 1.5 feet of snow.
And you know what? When I hear you speaking about these relationships, you mentioned earlier about, you found me on Instagram, and we bought garlic from each other in the co-op parking lot, and then we talked for hours. We were both late. We just couldn't stop talking. And I'm just constantly, every time I put myself out there, meet another grower, spend a little time hearing about their story and what they're doing, man, it pulls you in. And it's hard to not want to be closer to your farming community.
Yeah. It pulls at the heartstrings.
It's especially important for folks to get out there and not only connect people in the community, but with those other growers, people who can understand what you're going through. And that doesn't mean it has to be fully in person, but whether reaching out online to people or just doing what you can to connect with folks, because man, farming can be a very lonely job, and you just spend so much time by yourself and away from those you love. And it seems really important to double down and really invest in those the people around you.
It sure does. Yeah. And as the season gets going, we get busy. So the time we have together with folks and other farmers and the exchanges, they speed up at times, and
Yeah.
the texts get more abbreviated and the calls are more direct and 12 seconds. Do you have this? Do you want this? Type stuff. And that's okay too.
Yes. Yeah, totally. And if I'm not mistaken, you also work with different types of growers, not just folks in town, but with Amish communities as well to source products. And for folks who don't use a lot of technology, how do you interact with them? How do you do deals? How does that work?
Yeah, so I do. I work with a couple Amish communities out in Homer. The communities I work with are only certified organic farmers because that's how we do our thing. There's other farmers out there that are good farmers too. And so basically we we just did the annual crop planning with one of the groups and drove out to Homer and sat in one of the farmers' houses at the kitchen table there, and all the other farmers from the group came and we sit and plan. But like from a technology perspective, so Amish don't have phones, but they are within their belief system able to use a neighbor's phone. And so oftentimes, like with one of the groups that I work with, we have a 30-minute window twice a week that they're going to just stand by the phone and take calls. And with the other group, I have a few phone numbers saved in my contacts that I know are their neighbors' phones. And I'll call, hey, it's Adam. Is so-and-so around? No, but I'll get a message to him. And then I try to be on high alert for when they're going to call back. And then when they have a neighbor that drives them on their deliveries, and that most of the season they do twice a week. And so that neighbor also has a phone. So I've tried to like coordinate with that person some, but when they show up, when they're here making a delivery, I try to like do everything we can to coordinate for the next delivery. So there's some certainty. But they don't all come at once. They rotate who's going to go with the driver from the group, and it's a handful of growers. And so then I'll pass a message. Hey, can you tell so-and-so I would like, 10 cases of this for next Friday or whatever. And then there's also like just really the trust is very important because there's times that they show up with things that were not ordered because they have it. And so my goal is always to buy it when I can. There's been a few occasions where I say, I can't because I'm helping too many people and I'm already overcommitted. But I think there's that. And that's kind of how I work with those Amish growers is that way. I think for everybody that I work with, my goal, whether I'm buying from them or selling to them, my goal is to make it as easy as possible. I try to remove the barriers and I try to be thoughtful. It doesn't cost me anything to go out of my way to help them where I can. Plenty of people have done it for me. Lots of farmers have taught me that. Don't be lazy about the service. And it's just a feel good. And sometimes it's so exciting, and then you'll, like the first organic sweet corn of the season, or the first cucumber, and then it's bittersweet as the season starts winding down, and you're like, well, this is the last bell pepper of the year.
Yeah. And you're like, man, I can't wait to do this, again, in 6 months again, start over again.
Yeah.
Yeah, Adam, I've always been very impressed by your ability to work with all these people, all the different communities, all these diverse communities of farmers to not only feed people, but man, you've said it, but just the way you interact with those folks and try to take care of them, the compassion and putting the mission of local food and eating good organic products at the highest level is something that's really commendable. And why I really want to talk to you in this last episode, because, you're pretty far into your farming career, and it kind of seems like leading with that compassion and trying to take care of community has been like the forefront to really powering through all these years.
Yeah, as you get older, hopefully you learn, and everyone's got their code and their spiritual belief system and stuff like that. And there's something about fresh produce and the way the folks that are involved in the fresh produce industry, even wholesalers, non-farmers, like there's a certain passion, there's a certain love that we all share. And, like your friend Farmer Jesse calls everybody nerds, you
Yeah.
want to geek out on it, it's what you vibrate with. It's what resonates for you. And it kind of comes easy. And yeah.
Yeah, I know, totally. It breeds a certain type of person who cares about food and feeding other people. It kind of gets, it's in your bones. And it's a little shift here, but this is the No-Till Growers podcast, so we got to talk about no-till production a little bit. And I want to hear about and have you share your philosophy on soil building, your wood chipping system that you're currently doing, because I personally spent some time working on your farm, weeding beds. And as I'm pulling through and I'm weeding, I'm like, man, this soil is something special. What you're building there is something special. So I'd love for you to share any information on our final episode for folks to hear.
Yeah, thank you. So, luckily in this part of the country, there's a lot of wood. There's a lot of tree services. And so we are designated a dump spot for a local tree service. And so we get free wood chips. Most of the trailers are delivering about 10 to 12 yards at a time. And they don't bring me black walnut. They don't bring me something that they know was sprayed or like was sick or had some real problem. And then, so we get all these different wood chips. Most of the year, I'm getting more than I can work with. So they're sitting in a pile, decomposing, which is also beneficial. And we spread them with wheelbarrows. Depending on the field I'm in or the nature of it, I'll either use the double wheel, big mama wheelbarrow, or I'll use the single one if I need to get through a tight pathway. We dump the wood chips in place. So we just dump the entire wheelbarrow. We don't do any spreading at all at first. We used to spread them, and it doesn't work if you don't have at least 4 inches. And honestly, I think you need a lot more than 4 inches in most cases. After they've done their job of basically covering the weeds and the grass in the walkways to the point of not letting those come through, we will then take a rake and haul some of the wood chips over into the planting bed. And then there are times that we will take an area that maybe I kind of ignored for too long, and it's become like sod again with grass and weeds. There are instances where we will completely cover that with a foot and a half of wood chips, and then bring over compost, that nice spurt compost. We'll bring that over and use it pretty liberally, but in a focused area. So I'm not going to cover a 4-foot bed with a 4-foot wide strip of the compost. If I have 2 rows of peppers in that bed, I'm literally just taking my wheelbarrow down the walkway and taking shovels and creating the 2 rows that I just want that focused in. And then we'll use our organic amendments. So most of the time we are not planting directly into wood chips that have not broken down, but we have done that. But what we generally have is we have soil that is highly comprised of completely decomposed wood chips. And that is, I think that it's not a secret. That's our success story. Um, we're very mindful to use a diversity of organic input. So our number one input in terms of tonnage, other than compost from Spurt, which doesn't have any animal products in it currently, but it's a wonderful compost in many ways. We will add a heat treated poultry pellet, which is a chicken manure. We get a 432, 8% calcium, 12% sulfur. I'm always telling people about this product. I love it. It's heat treated, so it's a good food safety situation. That offsets any nitrogen suck from decomposing wood chips, because that is a very real thing to consider. But then we're always trying to use other stuff. So we use like kelp meal, feather meal, Tennessee brown rock phosphate, sunflower K ash, azomite, and then some of these nice liquid products like fish emulsions and corn steep liquor and soy hydrolysate and things like that. And so what I'm very careful not to do, though, is not to over fertilize, because the minute you over fertilize, you create an imbalance. And then really, you're just growing weeds and grass here in Michigan. I don't know about some other places, but here, that the weeds and grass seed bank in the soil is, it's deep and it's there. And so I do some soil testing every couple of years. This is a year I'm going to do it again, but mainly it's crop observation, looking like really tuning in to how the leaf structure looks and how the color of it looks, the sheen, the way it's transpiring water at different times of day. Like when you harvest like collards and kale in the early evening, right when the sun started to cool down, and you notice though that they're letting off a lot of water because the stomata is opening up. And when you notice that, that's when you know you have a healthy crop. When you're looking at your greens and they look too dark or too pale, it's like I don't have enough. Or like instances where people grow tomatoes and they get huge tomato plants, but maybe not a lot of fruit, and stuff like that. So I'm mindful of that. And so, but where we're at now, I think these last couple of years, we've finally seen the benefit of these years of using massive quantities of the wood chips. And the soil is feeding itself. And there's also a sense, some people might not like this, but I do. Like there's times a day I'll see 1,000 or 2,000 birds just in one little part of the field. Hopefully not lettuce. You don't want too many birds in the lettuce, but and I think like that type of wildlife activity is just you can't buy that. What they're doing. And then, of course, the crop rotation, being mindful of crop rotation, because not just for pests, but mindful of the root exudates that different plants are excreting. We've used some of like mycorrhizal fungi. I'm still going to keep using it. I'm not sure where I get the benefit of it. Also, they say it doesn't make connections with brassicas, but I'm not sure what it is I'm seeing on those brassica roots. They sure look like mycorrhizal fungi to me. I don't know.
And you said about the soil balance, and you said you might feel like you're seeing the results of those of those all the work you've done. How many years do you think you have been putting down these massive amounts of chips on the soil?
Yeah, so November that passed made 7 years we were on this farm. So that would mean 6 years of wood chipping. And in the beginning, we spread the wood chips too thin. We spread them over the entire fields, and the weeds and grass came right through. So we did get a nutrient benefit from it, but we didn't get like a mulching benefit from it. So it's about six years, and yeah, and we're going to continue doing it. We have no intention of stopping. We're just going to always keep going that direction. The only downside is that the beds that are near the driveway, because we're a small farm, the beds that are near the driveway have now become very elevated. And so we get pooling. And so like that's why there's a frozen lake. You know, you don't want pooling, you don't want pooling in your field, and you don't want erosion. And I'm not seeing any erosion because you would see that, but you have a little bit of that downhill effect happening. And
So you're saying that you've increased the soil level so high that all that water is running off your fields into like a driveway and freezing.
yeah, I don't think it's really running off the fields, but I do feel like maybe off the edge, like where there's an incline, because you don't see anything running off. But because I try to berm the edges of my field. I should mention that. So when we weed, all weeds go around that field. So all fields have berms, and that berm is made of those weeds. And the way I really try to do it is the root part of the weed is facing the field, and then the vegetative part of that weed is pointing outward, so that because the roots are holding some soil, right? And we don't want the nutrients to leave the field. And I do have this plan that at some time I'm going to plant some genius crop that would be perfect as in the berm, but I just don't know what it is or when.
Okay. Yeah. What I said earlier, I got to your fields and just looking, and you're looking into the beds, and it's just a perfect tilth on these beds. The roots just go so deep down into that soil and can really pull the nutrients out of there. And I was very impressed. And the minute I've seen that, I'm like, okay, I got to get more widgets into my fields. I got to get more in there. The minute I saw your stuff.
I love that. And I had a farmhand who was just remarking last year at how many different insects he saw. And he's like, I don't even know what all these insects are that are down there. I said, well, me either, but they're eating each other and doing what they do. And and it's nice. And it's funny because it's true, and you can read it a million times and hear people say it a lot of times, but in the first couple of years, you don't see the benefit. It does take a while for that soil health. Like I am so excited to send in my soil test this spring because I can't wait to see what's going on under the microscope that way. Yeah.
Yeah. You just said that how much of an investment that soil really is, how much of a long-term asset it is to invest in.
Oh, it's an investment. Yeah, it's an investment. And I used to even buy some more expensive input sometimes. Yeah, like fancy bagged biodynamic compost or something like that. But yeah.
Well, Adam, I really appreciate you sharing your philosophy on soil health and for sharing about your aggregation business. I think a lot of folks could learn a lot from hearing other ways to sell their product, other ways to get involved with other farms. And I really appreciate you taking time to not only talk with me, but for also being a great friend and a good mentor.
Well, thank you. I feel the same for you, Alex, and you've helped me so much. I know I'm not supposed to say all of it on this show, but you've helped me a lot with my farm and in life, and I'm glad that our paths have brought us together. And I know that your podcast helps the community, helps a lot of people, and if there's other farmers out there that want to ramble about soil health a little bit during the winter months, they could reach out to me on Instagram. In the summer, I'm probably slow to respond, but this time of year is a little bit extra time.
Well, Adam, I really appreciate it, man. And stay safe in the snowstorm out there. Stay warm, and we'll talk soon.
You too, Alex. Thanks.
Today's episode of the No-Till Market Garden podcast is brought to you by Ohio Earth Food. If you grow plants, you know that to a farm of any size, your soil is your most steadfast partner, an asset worthy of investing in. Since 1972, Ohio Earth Food has been the go-to source for the highest performing and most cost-effective granular and liquid fertilizers, seed-starting soils, foliar sprays, and disease and insect controls, all approved for use on organic farms. They deliver them right to your farm, too. Don't count on luck this year. Start your seeds in their Plant Pro and the Seed Catapult potting soils, and put their ReVita fertilizers in your soil before you plant, and rest assured that your plants will have all the nutrients, stimulants, and energy for whatever comes their way. These natural blends utilize compost, kelp, and humate, and are low salt index safe for high tunnels. Feed your soils and let your soil feed the plants. Visit them at ohioearthfood.com, now with branches in Ohio and Wisconsin. ohioearthfood.com. All right, back to the show.
A big thanks again to Adam Mitchell of Country Valley Farm for coming back on to share his experiences with all of us on local wholesale aggregation and soil management. Now, I want to end the episode with a conversation with Lindsay Steele of Garden Fort to discuss continued growth in a mature greens business. Lindsay, I'm so excited to have you on the show today. We've been talking forever before we record, so we got finally talking about this. For folks who don't know, give them your name, your farm name, and kind of what you specialize in and do.
Okay, my name is Lindsay Steele. My farm is Garden Fort. We've been around since 2013. We are in Dexter, Michigan, just west of Ann Arbor. We're sited on 35 acres, but probably using about 4 of that for production. We grow salad greens, so spinach, lettuce mix. We do a greens mix with like Asian greens, baby kale, which kind of changes through the season. And then we do pea shoots and sunflower shoots in the greenhouse, and a few other kind of specialty things for people that come asking for it, like micro cilantro or micro basil. And then we usually do a little bit of carrots in the fall, just because we like to grow carrots in the fall.
So it sounds like you're pretty dialed in on the crops you're offering. Has the farm always been that way, or is that something that's changed over time?
We did a little bit of everything at the beginning, and we did farmers markets. And in the farmers market kind of system, you have your clientele and you kind of want to fill their bags. And so we would grow, they come and buy our salad greens every week, and they'd also pick up a bunch of carrots and some beets and some radishes. And we'd throw some, even onions, potatoes, squash, like things like that, like I said, filled the bag. But at the end of the day, it's like, it was a lot of effort for not a lot of return. So we did that for a few years, and then we switched over. We had a couple of retail accounts, and we decided to focus on them. And before we did that, did a kind of a full crop analysis. Basically just made an elaborate spreadsheet that accounted for kind of all the time and inputs that went into each crop. And it spat out like a profitability number at the end. And so it gave us, at the time we were growing over 40 crops, and we could basically just pick the top 10, cut off the whole bottom. And so I did that for the first year. And then after that, because there was still like tomatoes and peppers and things like that, like in that list. But after that first year of doing those with the retail, we just kind of went all in on like the top 5, which was basically mostly greens. So I also I have like a graphic design background, so it's easy for me to make like a nice package to put them in and take them to stores. And, just get more stores, get more visibility. And, every once in a while a chef will come asking for stuff, and or another store or whatever. And so we kind of grew organically that way. Now we're, probably about 20 different retailers and 5 or 6 different chefs that we're pretty consistent with. And then like a few different aggregators that are pulling together, box programs or like a CSA style thing.
It's risky to say I'm going to stop growing all these other crops and I'm going to go full in on the highest ones. How was that?
Well, at that point, I think I was only really making money in the summertime, going to the farmers markets. and I was still kind of hustling freelance design work and things like that to make ends meet over the winter. So in some ways, I felt like it didn't have a lot to lose anyways. So it's like you may as well just try. Like, and yeah, I think that was. It's not like I was wildly successful at the farmers market. Like I was fine, but I was paying the bills for a few months and not the whole year, and that was not going to work for me long term.
I totally see what you mean by that. That's so it wasn't like a huge sacrifice to try and go down this route of scaling up the few crops that were doing well for you.
Yeah. I mean, it felt a little bit like it at the time because it's what you know, and you have all these customers, and they're counting on you. You got all these really good relationships, and you've established with all kinds of people in your community, and then you don't know what's out there. But we're in a big metropolitan area, Metro Detroit, Ann Arbor area, and there's a lot of like mom and pop grocery stores around, and small businesses, small restaurants, and things like that. And there's people out there that are just waiting for somebody to show up and be reliable and consistent with a good product.
Yeah, it's funny. I was listening to like an MSU report, and they were growing greens for like the food hall that was connected to the farm, whatever. And they had like a 30 by 100 hoop. And the study they found is that just to provide the salad greens for that one food hall inside a dorm was 10 30 by 100s in order to supply just the salad mix for that one space. So like the market's out there. There's enough demand for that product.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we could still continue to expand. It's just a matter of time, energy, money, all those things,
And maybe that's actually kind of a good transition, is that, you're pretty deep into your business. You've got a decent amount size staff. And now that you've dialed in so much of your operation and really got things nice and tight, how do you make that next step? Like, how do you continue to grow your business? And how do you continue to, get that return you're looking for?
It's an interesting place to be because in some sense, we've kind of arrived. Like I got to where I wanted to be. I'm taking home what I want to take home. I'm paying my employees, like $18, $20 an hour. Everybody's like fairly happy. I think obviously like everybody could always use more money. So that's a potential driver to try to do more. But we are in a pretty good spot. We are also at like a spot where with our team and our accounts and just like logistically, like our delivery days, we deliver to like kind of half of our accounts on Tuesday, and then we deliver to everybody on Friday. And so Friday is basically full. And so if we want to take on more accounts, we're looking at a scenario where we have to add another delivery day or another truck on the road, or and then on the back end of that is like we have usually about 5 people putting in, an 8-hour day on a Thursday to pack everything to go out on Friday. And so we're at this point where it's like, it's kind of a sweet spot. And if we want to grow, it's this sort of doubling down effect where it's like, okay, all of a sudden we just have a pack house team and a field team, and then more trucks on the road or more days, and it creates a whole new like logistical scenario that has to be figured out. So we're actually in counter to what I just said about simplifying and focusing. It's like, is this the time now where we have a span of good customers that we we know and we have all these good accounts. Could we just start to diversify a little bit more and fill out the trucks a bit more?
And I think you said it earlier, but it's kind of that line of building the marketplace first. Build the market for that product before you have the demand for it, before you have that product. And it sounds like if you've already built the infrastructure, you built the accounts, people are ordering, you built the momentum of folks ordering and getting your green product, that at this point now you're saying that it seems like it might be more maybe economic to start adding in back to some of those other crops around the edge to maybe push that a little bit more.
Yeah. Possibly. Don't really know what to do at this point, actually. But
that's real though. I think that's the real point a lot of us get to, is that you don't know what that next step is.
And there's there's also like another route where it's just like, just ride it, and get into maintenance phase and kind of do that. But then it goes against my personality of trying to problem solve and figure out and build new things and that. So it's like, another option. Do I get a team together that basically takes over that maintenance and runs it, and then I go off and do some new project? So it's a bit of a, personal existential crisis time. Trying to figure out what to do next.
No, I can hear that, and I think that's the hard part. It's like like building and dreaming and making plans is so much fun, and it feels good, and it feels like growth. But like doing the same thing and now that's hard. It can sometimes become not fun. and get a little heavy on our shoulders, especially when the things around us that need to get done.
Yeah, it's middle of winter right now, and in the middle of like staff change that happens in the winter, and always it's like, this feels like the time that I should be holed up and doing creative things, and or even just whatever, like analysis in the background, and I'm stuck doing deliveries and packing orders and harvesting, picking spinach and stuff like that. So, and after doing it for, I don't know how long that's been, 12, 13 years, I'm just like, I can get really frustrated that I'm doing that. Not that it's like, sometimes I really enjoy doing it, but yeah, when there's other things that I know I should be focusing on and I'm not able to get to it, it can be really frustrating.
Yeah. No, I could totally imagine that. And it's like, especially when you have to get the order out, the greens have to go out. Like those things you can't. Yeah, exactly. You gotta keep cranking the wheel to keep things going. How do you find time to work on the business when you're so deep into it? But of all people, like when I looked at your operation, like every time I come by, it always seems like you're done something new. You're added something more, and you're always dialing in, and assuming to give yourself more time to then circle back.
Exactly. Just always trying to find some time for like naps, and that's the goal. That's the main goal.
I don't know about you, but I kind of feel like when you're early on in your farm career, so much of it is like, it's like pushing towards the finish line of sustainability or of like profitability or whatever that is. And like, I personally got caught up with like, oh, I don't know what to do once I've gotten to the goal I want. It's like, oh geez, now what's next?
Yeah, it's a really bizarre feeling to kind of get to those finish lines. And it's happened to me several times along the way where it's just like, I want to make, I want my farm to make $65,000. And then it's like, you do it and you're sort of like, well, that's not even really that much money. Like it's like 30 grand in my pocket or something. And, so, okay, I want to do 150 and you do it. And it's like, okay, well, I could still use more money. And, the next target. And I mean, we moved our farm 2 years ago, and that drove another growth phase where we were just like, okay, now we got to hit like $250,000 so that we can pay our new giant mortgage. And and then we did that, and now we're here. And yeah, it's great, pat yourself on the back, but it is this sort of crossroads of what do you do now? And then you're so used to that cycle that it's like, I either have to like change and just be happy with not going anywhere, riding this thing, or like, I don't know, there's so many things I want to do. And, I really want to make a big impact on the local food scene. The future just every day looks more and more uncertain, and trying to stage for that is something I think a lot about. So what's going to be the best thing for the community to kind of make it through whatever's coming at us on all fronts,
Yeah, I totally see what you mean by that. And maybe from what I'm hearing is that you're at a place now in your operation that you can really think about those things a little more.
Yeah, it's really cool. We'll call it that for now.
yeah, exactly. Oh man, yeah. I think the more I talk to growers, I really want to hear how folks who have made it past that 10-year mark, who are actually, it's so much fun, building the farm out, building the hoops up, but then when all this stuff is built and you have to then turn the profit and actually turn the wheel after you built it. I'm always interested to hear how folks are able to maintain that and actually get to that point. So would you say that your consolidation of crops and that dialing in was a turning point in the operation in order to get to this point? And do you think you could have gotten there with our local, considering our local demographics and the high amount of growers here, do you think you could have gotten there doing more diversity, or do you think for our local area that doubling down on the niche crops, select crops was?
Yeah, I think it was a really critical thing to do, to crop focus and to, I focused on my crops, but I diversified my customer base, I spread out geographically a lot more. Like, instead of just going into town and doing the farmer's market, I was willing to drive to all the way to Detroit, really, to go to a restaurant that's taken enough volume, or a store, and found some really good accounts, like different demographics that were outside of the kind of small circle, like, whatever 5-10 mile radius, which I think growers that do that have a lot of pride in that, and that's really cool. It's special at the farmers market and that kind of thing. But spreading out a little bit, I think, was also a good move, because there's, especially, you get it, the closer you get into the city, the less and less farms there are, and like, those people are just as hungry for local food as the people that live on 1 acre and just don't have time to garden or whatever. Like, there's people living in apartments in the city that are just dying to have some good fresh food that is accessible, and and also paying attention to that, what is lowering the friction to access, farmers markets, CSAs, they're great, but there's a lot of, I'm a parent now with kids, and I can't get to the farmers market on Saturday morning or whatever. That sounds really hard to do. Yeah. And some people value it and make it happen, but it's a privilege thing, really. And so, yeah, it's if you can get into there's stores in the cities, you get closer into the core and bring it. It's a good opportunity there.
I really appreciate you saying that, because I think many growers, especially myself, who started out, we kind of get caught up on like sometimes hyper locality mindset of like, oh, I have to keep it in this ring of area, but really there's so many more people who want that product further out. And like, I don't know about you, but like you probably get phone calls from people, like, there's always people who want these things. Yeah. And that's like, oh, if I would just get to these people, then it would solve so much of those issues. And like many of our people listeners or growers, we're not always in like very urban spaces. We're on peri-urban, kind of on the edge there. And the idea of expanding that to this greater community sometimes seems a little bit daunting. But like, I think I realized that, especially in we're right down the street from each other, but like, there's not a ton of in these rural spaces or peri-urban, there's not a ton of people, and you can really easily tap out a community of a small town community fast, especially when you think of like a CSA or other products that have a very niche clientele who can really access that, who are even going to access that. And that's one thing I've always respected about your operations, that you work really hard to get things in grocery stores and markets and really lower that barrier to fresh local products, which I really respect that. It's hard to do to really get that out there, but that's kind of what you gotta meet people where they're at if you want them to actually buy this product.
Yeah, it's like I think at first, like my first account that was in like a store in Southfield, which is probably, I don't know, it's like a 40-minute drive from my house. And that was like what started it. And that first, it was one store, but they owned 3 stores. So it was like a one stop for 3 stores. They distribute it out of there, which really helped to sell it for me. But it did feel silly at first, where it's just like, I'm going all the way out here to do this. And it was like, it was enough money that was like, okay, I got, a few $100s worth of product in the truck. It's like, it's okay. This isn't that silly. But, once you start going out there, then the store down the street all of a sudden is calling you and they want the same stuff. And you can start to fill out that route a little bit more and, get a good route going. And then it doesn't seem so silly anymore. You're just like, this is it. Like, these are my good customers out here. It's worth the trip every time.
Well, Lindsay, I really appreciate taking time to talk to us. Come back again. You don't know, you were one of my popular episodes I had in the past. People loved hearing from you. And I think you're also one of my favorite farmers because you really get it and dial it in and, creating good jobs for people here and feeding good folks. So I really appreciate you coming on the show and chatting with folks one last time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Alex.
Anytime, man. I'm so appreciative of Adam and Lindsay and all of my past guests for taking time out of their busy schedules to talk to me and share their stories with all of you. With this being my final interview, I want to shout out the entire crew at No-Till Growers, including Jesse, Jackson, Michael the editor, and my co-hosts Natalie and Mimi for such an enriching experience and for teaching me so much about storytelling, podcasting, and much, much more. It's been so much fun and so enlightening to get to speak with so many talented farmers, and I'm just appreciative to have the opportunity to work with so many talented people. I think if I've learned one thing from our time chatting with so many growers is the importance of community, connecting with my fellow farmers, and investing in those around me. If you want to follow along with my personal farming journey, you can find me on Instagram at Old City Acres or email me at any time at oldcityacres@gmail.com. Thank you all so much for listening, and until next time, stay safe, have some fun, and try not to work too hard out there.
All right. We hope you enjoyed that episode. Always make sure to check the links in the show notes for how to follow our guests and hosts. The No-Till Market Garden podcast is a free show that is supported by folks like you who contribute every month over at patreon.com/no-till-growers. That support helps ensure all the shows we do, from the Seed Farmer podcast to the Winter Growers podcast, the Collaborative Farming podcast, the Composter podcast, Growers Daily, and of course the No-Till Market Garden podcast, can continue to go and grow. You can also find books and hats as well as an active forum over at no-tillgrowers.com. Huge thank you to editor Michael Sellis and producer Jackson Roulette for all their work on this show and the rest of the team over at no-tillgrowers.com. Otherwise, thank you all for listening, and make sure you are subscribed wherever you're hearing this so you don't miss the next episode of the No-Till Market Garden podcast. See you then.